The stream of humiliation for Donald Trump just keeps on coming, guys. You'd think that after his crushing defeat on election night, he'd finally take the hint, retreat in silence and wallow back in private. Maybe with his usual fast food binge and, another tantrum to go with it. But no, into true form, Trump can't resist doubling down on his own embarrassment. Now, instead of facing reality with even a shred of dignity, he's decided to dive headfirst into further disgrace. And the fallout isn't limited to him anymore. His chaos is spilling over to his family. Even his wife Melania has become part of the spectacle, reportedly adding to his growing list of personal humiliations. The two of them, once propped up as political royalty, now look more like a crumbling act of desperately clinging to relevance. We are going to get in all of it, guys, but before I do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, because it goes a long way in helping our work. Okay, so honestly, the sheer volume of bad news circling Trump and Melania lately is something you have to see to believe. But before we unpack the latest fiasco between them two, let's first revisit the trigger for Trump's ongoing meltdown, the humiliating election defeat he just can't seem to accept. Take a look.
Well, last night, Donald Trump went from being a lame duck to being a humiliated duck when voters from coast to coast turned out to vote against Donald Trump and his candidates and his policies in every place and in every way that they could. Donald Trump's explanation today for the Republican wipeout last night is that Donald Trump was not on the ballot. That's what he says. The conservative Wall Street Journal editorial board has written a reply to that under the headline, "Trump really was on the ballot." The Journal editorial says Mr. Trump was on the ballot, not literally, but nonetheless, as the main motivating force behind a dominating Democratic turnout. Winning Democratic candidates for governor in New Jersey and Virginia linked their opponents to Mr. Trump, driving Democratic voters to the polls and erasing the GOP gains in 2024 among Hispanics, Black men, and independents. The result was a much bigger Democratic triumph than polls predicted. The tsunami was big enough that Democrats were able to pick up 13 seats in the Virginia House of Delegates. They'll have 64 seats out of 100, which could give Democrats the chance to redistrict next year to gain congressional seats. And in California, where not a single name was on the ballot, voters stood in long lines to deliver 63% support for Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom's proposal for congressional redistricting in California that could add 4 or 5 seats for the Democrats to the House of Representatives and win control of the House of Representatives for the Democrats in next year's election. Every one of those California votes for that proposition was a vote against Donald Trump, every one of them. The reason no previous president has ever considered pursuing any of the policies Donald Trump has pursued this year is that those policies are obviously politically suicidal. And now we have the proof of that. And Donald Trump's bright idea today, during his politically suicidal government shutdown, is to partially shut down the air traffic control system in this country with the Thanksgiving travel surge approaching. Every day, Donald Trump finds a new way to weaken himself and weaken his party politically while making life in this country worse for millions of Americans. And now he wants to make it much worse for the millions of Americans who hope to go home for Thanksgiving this year. With less than a year into his presidency this time, Donald Trump is now the lamest of lame ducks ever to occupy the presidency. And sinking with him is the lamest group of Republican members of the House and Senate that the country has ever seen. The election returns last night indicate that a year from now, Democrats will win back control of the House of Representatives, and Donald Trump's administration and his incompetent cabinet members will be subject to real investigations of their personal profiteering from government.
Guys, let's embrace the fact that Donald Trump, the self-proclaimed winner of everything, just proved once again that he's nothing more than just a sore loser throwing tantrums while his party takes one beating after another. Republicans didn't just lose, guys, they got obliterated across the board. Total blowouts, and sure, we'll eventually turn to focus for 26, but come on, after all the doom, the denial and the endless whining from Trump and his followers, I think we've earned a little time to celebrate, especially now as Trump stews in his own fury. Apparently, he's challenging that rage into his usual tacky obsessions, turning the White House into a gold-plated playground as usual and slapping his name and ego on everything inside. Now, excuse me, and not just him, Melania's latest project isn't faring any better either, guys. Their joint venture at the Kennedy Center, where she's supposed to play some kind of leadership role, is reportedly falling apart though. Let's be honest, it was never really going well to begin with. The whole spectacle is just another reminder that everything Trump touches seems to spiral into chaos and bad taste. Donald Trump's recent post about the Kennedy Center, which was under the responsibility of Melania Trump, this is his recent post, and as you can see, it's the boasting of it, that it's all lovely, I've got it done in 2 weeks, with the magnificent marble, it's been renovated and the new fabrics, everything, his people got it done within 2 weeks. It was dead as a doornail, but it'll be soon beautiful again, getting it done by the latest trademarks and everything and so on. And then, as you can see, moving on, obviously this was a business idea, to rake in some more money for themselves, get some business, more money flowing in, and as you can see, they was looking really forward to it. But as you can see, moving on, what really happened was this. Nobody hears the people sing, guys. Ticket sales at Kennedy Center plunged by nearly 50% after Trump's takeover. Tens of thousands of lovely new seats have remained empty during the theatre, orchestra and dance performance at the institution. So that was a complete flop. Donald and Melania Trump's so-called, prestige projects, as it were, at the Kennedy Center has turned into yet another embarrassing flop, guys. A complete disaster, really. I mean, what was meant to showcase this supposed, sophistication has instead become a public eyesore. Footage has surfaced of trees and hedges being ripped out as Trump imposes his signature tacky aesthetics. Think Mar-a-Lago meets a parking lot concrete, type thing. It's the same Gaudi, soulless style he's tried to force on everything from the Rose Garden to his failed business ventures. Frankly, it's humiliating to see such a cultural landmark degraded by their touch. I mean, it is sad. But let's be honest, guys, humiliation seems to follow Trump wherever he goes. The public's disdain for him couldn't be clearer at this moment in time, and it's almost comical how consistently people reject everything he does. What's even more ironic is how Melania appears to think as well. She's somehow separate from the mess, she believes so. But she acts like she's above it all, just imagining people hate her husband only, but secretly admire her fashion or her supposed class. I mean, we all know what that is. Sorry, but no one's buying that illusion. It's not happening. So the Trumps are a package deal, and both share the same arrogance, tone deafness and moral emptiness that define their public image. And while we're at it, guys, the hypocrisy runs deep. Trump constantly attacks immigrants, while his own wife, an immigrant herself, has struggled to even connect with the country she pretends to represent. Come on, guys. I mean, Melania may see herself as as refined and untouchable, but to the public, she's just another enabler of Trump's toxic circus. This Kennedy Center fiasco thing is just one more humiliation added to the Trump's growing list of humiliations and failures. And as if that weren't enough, Trump's much hyped economic blunders to go with it, like his disastrous tariffs, are finally catching up with him too. The empire of bluster and bad taste he's built is crumbling, a one self-inflicted embarrassment at a time.
And they had to sit there silently for all 2 hours and 40 minutes in which Donald Trump's lawyer never said that tariffs are not taxes. He didn't try to make that impossible point. It was simply an accepted fact of the case by all of the justices. Tariffs are taxes. 3 minutes after Neil Katyal's first sentence saying tariffs are taxes, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court said, quote, "The tariffs are a tax," end quote. That is how fully accepted that fact was during this argument. Chief Justice Roberts said, yes, sure, the tariffs are a tax, and that's a core power of Congress. Yes, sure. Not a single Supreme Court justice disagreed with the Chief or Neil Katyal about that. Tariffs are taxes is the single shortest sentence that exposes the lie of the Trump tariffs, which Donald Trump has claimed are paid by foreign countries. Donald Trump's lawyer, the Solicitor General, didn't dare try to tell that lie to the Supreme Court today. Donald Trump's lawyer could not refute one word of Neil Katyal's exquisite opening 4 sentences in his brilliant argument today.
Tariffs are taxes. They take dollars from Americans' pockets and deposit them in the U.S. Treasury. Our founders gave that taxing power to Congress alone. Yet here, the president bypassed Congress and imposed one of the largest tax increases in our lifetimes.
Dollars from Americans' pockets. This is what Donald Trump has done. He has imposed one of the largest tax increases in our lifetimes by stealing a power that the founders explicitly gave to Congress alone. Not one word of that was disputed in any way before the Supreme Court today. Chief Justice Roberts made it very clear who pays the Trump tariffs in his first questions to Donald Trump's Solicitor General. Chief Justice Roberts said this about the Trump tariffs. Quote, "The vehicle is imposition of taxes on Americans, and that has always been the core power of Congress." The Supreme Court has spoken. Americans pay the Trump tariffs. Justice Sotomayor interrupted Donald Trump's Solicitor General early in his argument with a line a lawyer never wants to hear from a Supreme Court justice: "I just don't understand this argument."
For the past year, Republicans have been desperately clinging on to the fantasy that Donald Trump, is some kind of unstoppable political, juggernaut, as if the laws of reality no longer apply to him. So what they've done is they've pushed this myth that he's popular now, that he's, transformed American politics, that people actually like him. But none of that has ever been true. It's far from the truth. Trump has never been a unifying force. He's always been, divisive, loves division, disliked and profoundly out of touch with the broader electorate. Recent elections have made that very clear, absolutely crystal clear. Democrats are whining key demographics, young voters, suburbans, moderates, and even groups that the GOP once claimed as their own. It clearly shows the numbers don't lie, guys. Younger generations, particularly men aged between 18 and 29 approximately, are turning away from Trumpism in droves. Democrats didn't suddenly just win them back. These voters were never truly lost. They were just fed up with, the Trump's chaos and the Republican Party's moral decay. So meanwhile, Trump's, keeps losing at every turn, every lawsuit, every political fight, every attempt to, prove his so-called dominance just ends in another public failure. So the illusion of invincibility is completely shattered. He's not, a movement leader. He's a complete liability. So his influence is shrinking by the day. His base is fracturing, and the country has largely moved on from his endless whining and self-pity, guys. And as always, I appreciate you guys for staying with me till the end. Please leave a like, leave a comment, stay connected, stay safe, and I'll hopefully see you on the next one.